I, 34F, have been married to my husband Tom, 36M, for 8 years now. This story involves my sister-in-law Sarah, 39F, who has always been extremely difficult to deal with. I need to give some background about Sarah first because it's important to understand why things got to this point. Sarah has always been the problem child in the family. From what Tom told me, their parents always walked on eggshells around her because she would throw massive tantrums even as a teenager if things didn't go her way. When she was 16, she once smashed all the windows in their house because their parents wouldn't let her go to a party. Instead of punishing her, they just paid for the repairs and tried to keep her happy to avoid more incidents. Their mom Delilah, 65F, and dad Steve, 67M, basically gave up on disciplining her after she set fire to her bedroom when they grounded her at age 14. They were so afraid she would hurt herself or someone else that they started giving in to all her demands. This created a pattern that followed Sarah into adulthood. Whenever she didn't get her way, she would escalate things until everyone gave in. I first met Sarah at a family dinner when Tom and I started dating. She spent the entire evening making snide comments about my job, my clothes, and even my family background. When I tried to stand up for myself, she threw her wine glass at the wall and stormed out. Tom's parents immediately started apologizing to her, not me, and Tom explained that's just how they handle Sarah to keep the peace. Sarah got married to her husband James, 41M, about 12 years ago, and he's probably the nicest guy I've ever met. He's successful, kind, and somehow puts up with all of Sarah's drama. Their wedding was a perfect example of her behavior. She fired 3 wedding planners, made 2 bridesmaids quit the wedding party, and threatened to cancel the whole thing 3 times because things weren't perfect enough for her. James just kept writing checks and smoothing things over. Every family gathering since I've known them has been a potential battlefield. Sarah has specific demands for every holiday. She needs to be served first, she needs the best seat, her food preferences have to be catered to, and everyone has to praise whatever gift she brings. If these unspoken rules aren't followed, she creates a scene. Last Christmas was particularly bad. Sarah threw a fit because my mother-in-law served turkey instead of ham, which Sarah preferred. She literally flipped the entire dining table, ruining everyone's dinner, and stormed out. No one said anything. They just cleaned up and acted like it was normal. Tom's parents even apologized to her later for not checking her preference first. I spent hours helping clean cranberry sauce off the walls while everyone talked about how we should have known better. At my wedding, she showed up in a white dress because she claimed blue, our wedding color, didn't suit her complexion. When I tried to object, my mother-in-law begged me to let it go to avoid drama. Sarah then demanded to be in all the family photos, even the ones that were supposed to be just me and Tom. Our photographer quit halfway through because Sarah kept screaming at her about angles and lighting. She's made multiple waitresses cry at restaurants, gotten several people fired from their jobs by complaining to their managers, and even got her neighbor's dog taken away by animal control by making false complaints. The poor dog had done nothing except bark when Sarah was trying to take her afternoon nap. The neighbors had to move away because Sarah kept calling the police on them for every little thing. Even at work functions, she causes problems. James is a partner at a law firm, and Sarah has gotten 3 of his associates transferred to different departments because she didn't like how they looked at her at company parties. She once threw a drink at a senior partner's wife because the woman was wearing the same dress as her. James had to make a substantial donation to the partner's favorite charity to smooth things over. The family's standard response is always that's just how Sarah is and it's easier to give in than deal with her anger. Even Tom, who is usually very protective of me, asks me to just ignore her behavior. Last Thanksgiving, she called me fat and suggested I should consider gastric bypass surgery. When I started crying, Tom's only response was, "You know she doesn't mean it, she's just being Sarah." I've been doing that for 8 years, swallowing my pride and letting her walk all over everyone. I've watched her make kids cry at birthday parties because the attention wasn't on her. I've seen her reduce shop assistants to tears because they didn't have her size in stock. I've witnessed her throw tantrums at restaurants because her steak was medium instead of medium rare. What happened last week changed everything. I work from home as a graphic designer, and my office window faces the street. Sarah often visits James for lunch as his office is near our house. Last Tuesday, I saw her car parked outside, but instead of heading to James's office, she got into another car with some guy. I thought it was weird but didn't think much of it. This continued for several days, and my curiosity got the better of me. I started taking videos of her getting into this mystery man's car. I could clearly see it was the same man each time, tall, dark-haired, driving a black BMW. Sarah would spend about 2 hours with him each time, then return to her car and drive away. Then yesterday, everything came to a head. Sarah and James had a massive fight right outside our house. James was crying and shouting about someone named Mike, and Sarah was screaming back at him. She was yelling that he was paranoid and crazy, but I knew better. Mike must be the guy she's been meeting. I know it was wrong, but I saw an opportunity. I edited all the videos together, showing Sarah getting into Mike's car on different days, along with timestamps. Then I texted them to Sarah with a simple message: be nice to everyone or James gets these videos. Sarah called me immediately, crying and begging me not to show James. She tried to explain that Mike was just a friend, but we both knew that was a lie. I told her my conditions were simple: she needs to start treating everyone with respect, apologize for her past behavior, and make amends. Otherwise, James would see all the evidence of her affair. She agreed, but now I'm wondering if I went too far. Tom doesn't know about any of this, and neither does the rest of the family. They just think Sarah has had a miraculous personality change. She's been overly nice at recent family gatherings, apologizing for past behavior, and even sent my mother-in-law flowers. Yesterday she helped clean up after dinner without being asked, and everyone was looking at her like she had been replaced by a pod person. I feel slightly guilty about the blackmail, but after 8 years of watching her terrorize everyone and facing no consequences, I think she deserved it. Everyone seems happier now that she's behaving better, even if they don't know why. But am I the asshole for handling it this way? Update 1: Things got more complicated than I expected. Sarah has been keeping her end of the bargain these past 2 weeks, being nice to everyone, apologizing for past behavior, and generally acting like a decent human being. The family is shocked by her transformation. Last weekend, she even helped my mother-in-law reorganize her entire kitchen without a single complaint or outburst. The changes in her behavior are actually pretty dramatic. Last Tuesday, we were at a restaurant for Tom's birthday dinner. The waiter got her order wrong, bringing her salmon instead of steak. The old Sarah would have thrown the plate across the room. She did exactly that last year at her own birthday dinner. But this time, she just smiled and politely asked if they could fix it. Everyone at the table was staring at her like she had grown a second head. She's been sending random gifts to family members too. My mother-in-law got flowers. Tom's cousin received an apology card for ruining her baby shower 3 years ago. Sarah had announced her own pregnancy at the shower, which turned out to be a false alarm, and she even sent a wedding gift to Tom's other sister whose wedding she ruined back in 2019 by getting drunk and giving a speech about how the groom was settling for less. But last week, something happened that made me question everything. I was having coffee with James's sister Amy, 43F, who I've become friends with over the years. We usually meet at this little cafe near her office every other Wednesday. She seemed distracted and worried, not her usual chatty self. When I asked what was wrong, she started talking about how worried she was about James because he's been acting strange lately. According to Amy, James has been staying at the office until 11 p.m. most nights, claiming he's working on a big case. But when she called the office one night looking for him, his secretary said he'd left hours ago. He's been being secretive with his phone too, taking calls in another room, tilting the screen away when anyone walks by, and Amy once saw him delete all his text messages when Sarah asked to use his phone to make a call. He's been making excuses to miss family events too. He missed his own father's retirement party last month, claiming he had a work emergency. Amy later found out from another partner at the firm that there was no emergency that night. He's been withdrawn at family gatherings he does attend, constantly checking his phone and making excuses to step outside for calls. That's when Amy dropped the bombshell: James has been seeing his secretary, Jessica, for the past 6 months. Amy knew because she saw them together at an Italian restaurant in Millbrook, a town about an hour away where her daughter goes to college. They weren't even trying to be discreet, holding hands across the table, feeding each other bites of food, and she saw them kiss when they thought no one was looking. Amy had been keeping this secret because she didn't want to hurt Sarah, despite how awful Sarah had been to everyone. She showed me pictures she took at the restaurant. There was no mistaking it was James and his secretary. Amy was torn about whether to tell Sarah, especially now that Sarah seems to be trying to become a better person. I felt sick to my stomach. Here I was, blackmailing Sarah about her affair with Mike, when James was doing the exact same thing. The worst part? Sarah seems to have genuinely been trying to change. Tom mentioned yesterday that she's been going to anger management classes 3 times a week. He knew because he ran into her coming out of the counseling center when he was getting coffee next door. She's been making real efforts to repair relationships with family members too. Last week, she spent an entire day helping Tom's cousin move into her new apartment, the same cousin whose dog she got taken away 2 years ago. She's been babysitting for Tom's other sister, even though she previously claimed she hated children and refused to be around them. I couldn't keep this information to myself, so I called Sarah and asked her to meet me at a park far from both our houses. When I told her about James's affair, she broke down completely. She didn't even try to maintain her usual composed facade, she just sat on the park bench and sobbed. Several people walking by gave us concerned looks, but she didn't even notice. Through her tears, she revealed that she had suspected something was going on with James for months. She had found lipstick on his collar that wasn't hers, smelled unfamiliar perfume on his clothes, and noticed large withdrawals from their joint account that he couldn't explain. That's why she started seeing Mike. She didn't want to believe James would cheat on her, so she did it first to make herself feel better about her suspicions. She admitted that Mike was a personal trainer at her gym. She had started confiding in him about her suspicions regarding James, and one thing led to another. She said she hated herself for it, but she was so angry and hurt by her suspicions about James that she wanted to hurt him back, even if he never found out. Now I feel terrible about blackmailing her. Sarah might have been horrible to everyone, but finding out about James's affair explains some of her recent outbursts. The time she threw a fit about the seating arrangement at Easter dinner? It was right after she found the lipstick on James's collar. The Christmas dinner table flipping incident? That was the day after she discovered those unexplained withdrawals. The guilt is eating me alive. I've been using her affair to force her to be nice, while she's been dealing with her own husband's infidelity. She begged me not to tell James about Mike, saying she wants to work on their marriage, but I don't know what to do anymore. Do I keep blackmailing her to maintain this new, nicer version of Sarah? Do I tell her that Amy has actual proof of James's affair? The whole situation is so much messier than I thought, and I feel like I'm in way over my head. Update 2: Everything blew up in the worst possible way this week. After carrying around the guilt of blackmailing Sarah and knowing about James's affair, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to come clean to Tom about everything: the videos of Sarah with Mike, the blackmail, and what I learned from Amy about James and his secretary. I told Tom everything last Sunday night after dinner. I expected him to be angry with me, to tell me I was just as bad as Sarah for resorting to blackmail. But his reaction was completely different. He just sat there quietly for a long time, then asked me if I wanted to know the real reason everyone tolerated Sarah's behavior for so long. That's when Tom revealed something I never knew: Sarah isn't actually his full sister. Apparently, their mom had an affair years ago with a coworker and Sarah was the result. Their dad knew but chose to raise her as his own. The only people who knew were their parents and Tom. He found out by accident when he was 15, he overheard his parents arguing about it during one of Sarah's episodes. Tom thinks this knowledge is what made everyone so tolerant of Sarah's behavior. Their mom overcompensated out of guilt, their dad tried extra hard to prove he loved her the same as his biological children, and Tom felt protective of her because he knew she was carrying around a burden she didn't even know about. He said there were so many times he wanted to tell her, especially when she would scream about how she felt like she didn't belong in the family. I was still processing this revelation when Sarah showed up at our door, mascara running down her face and shaking like a leaf. She had finally confronted James about his affair. She told him she knew he was seeing Jessica, his secretary. He tried to deny it at first, but when she mentioned the specific restaurant in Millbrook where Amy had seen them, he broke down and confessed. Their fight got so bad that the neighbors called the police. Sarah had started throwing things, not out of her usual anger, but out of pure heartbreak. She described watching James's face as he admitted to a 6-month affair with Jessica, how he claimed he fell in love with her, how different she was from Sarah. He told Sarah that Jessica was gentle and kind, everything Sarah wasn't. But that wasn't even the worst part. In the middle of their fight, Sarah's phone kept buzzing with text messages from me about meeting up to discuss the blackmail situation. James grabbed her phone, thinking she was texting Mike. He managed to unlock it, he knew her password and found all our conversations, including the videos I sent her of her meetings with Mike. James is now threatening to show everyone the videos unless Sarah agrees to a divorce where he keeps most of their assets. He's claiming that her affair started first, it didn't, and that she drove him to cheat. He's already shown the videos to his lawyer and is threatening to use them to prove she was an unfit wife. Sarah had nowhere else to go, so she's staying in our guest room now. She's not the same angry person anymore, she's completely broken. Last night, after Tom told her the truth about her parentage, she just sat on the guest bed staring at the wall for hours. She told me that her anger issues stemmed from always feeling different from the rest of the family, like she didn't belong. She said she always felt like her parents were trying too hard with her, like they were overcompensating for something, but she never knew why until now. The truth about her biological father explained so much. Her anger issues started around age 12 when she first started noticing how different she looked from Tom and their other siblings. She was the only one with green eyes and dark hair in a family of blue-eyed blondes. She said she used to stand in front of the mirror for hours, trying to find any family resemblance. Things are tense in the house now. Sarah barely eats or speaks. Tom is struggling with guilt over keeping the secret for so long. I feel terrible about the blackmail, which now seems so petty compared to everything else that's come out. James keeps calling and texting, alternating between threatening to expose Sarah's affair and begging her to come back home. Yesterday, Sarah asked Tom for information about her biological father. Apparently, he's still alive and living just 2 states away. She's thinking about contacting him, but she's terrified of causing even more drama in the family. Tom's parents don't know that we know the truth, and Sarah isn't sure if she should confront them about keeping this secret her entire life. I don't know how this is going to end, but I know things will never be the same for this family again. My attempt to fix Sarah's behavior through blackmail has led to the unraveling of decades of family secrets, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. Update 3: The past few months have been an absolute roller coaster for everyone involved. After everything came out, Sarah and James got divorced. He did end up showing the videos to the family, but it completely backfired on him because Amy came forward about his affair too. She showed everyone the pictures of him with Jessica at the restaurant, and even provided receipts showing he'd been taking Jessica to expensive hotels using the joint account he shared with Sarah. The divorce was messy. James tried to paint Sarah as the villain, but his lawyer dropped him when evidence of his own affair came to light. Sarah's new lawyer, recommended by Amy, surprisingly, was ruthless. She not only got Sarah half of everything but also proved that James had been embezzling money from his law firm to fund his affair. He ended up losing his partnership at the firm, and Jessica got fired too. Sarah moved to another state for a fresh start last month. She found a job as an event coordinator in Boston, which is ironic considering how many events she ruined over the years. Before leaving, she had a long talk with her parents about her real father. It didn't go well at first. Her mom broke down completely and her dad just walked out of the house. But they talked again a few days later, and more truth came out. It turns out her biological father, Mark, had wanted to be part of her life from the beginning. He had even offered to pay child support and stay away if they would just tell Sarah the truth when she was old enough. But their mom had chosen her marriage instead, and they made Mark promise to never contact Sarah. He kept that promise but had been keeping track of her life from a distance. Sarah found him on Facebook and reached out. They met for coffee when she was looking at apartments in Boston, and it was like looking in a mirror. They have the same green eyes, same dark hair, same mannerisms. Mark has 2 other daughters who look just like Sarah, and they've been incredibly welcoming to their new sister. The most surprising thing is that Sarah and I have become close friends. We talk almost every day, and she's like a different person now. Last week, she called me crying because she had snapped at a barista and immediately felt terrible about it. The old Sarah would never have cared about a stranger's feelings. She's in therapy, her choice, not anyone's suggestion, and she's working through her anger issues. Her therapist helped her understand that her rage was really just pain from feeling like an outsider in her own family. She actually apologized to me for all the years of awful behavior, and I apologized for the blackmail. We both agreed that we handled things badly, but maybe it was necessary for all these secrets to come out. Sarah said she feels free for the first time in her life, free from her anger, free from her parents' overcompensating guilt, and free from James's manipulation. Tom's parents are having a hard time dealing with everything being out in the open after so many years. Their mom had a minor breakdown and spent a week in the hospital. Their dad is trying to maintain relationships with both Sarah and James, which is causing tension with everyone. Tom is just relieved that he doesn't have to carry the secret anymore, though he feels guilty for not telling Sarah sooner. The extended family is still processing everything. Some relatives have sided with James, claiming Sarah's behavior over the years justified his affair. Others are firmly on Sarah's side, especially after learning about her parentage. Holiday gatherings are going to be awkward for a long time. Sarah is doing better now, building a new life away from all the drama. She's dating someone new, a divorced dad who she met in therapy, and she says he's teaching her patience and kindness. She might not be the nicest person yet, but she's trying, and this time it's for herself, not because someone is forcing her. Last week, she even reached out to some people she had hurt in the past to apologize. I guess sometimes you need everything to fall apart before you can build something better. The family will never be the same, but maybe that's not such a bad thing. The old Sarah is gone, and while the new Sarah isn't perfect, she's genuinely trying to be better. As for me, I learned that blackmail, even with good intentions, usually makes things worse, but sometimes worse is what needs to happen for anything to get better.